With Lululemon, the real gift happens when your holiday checklist is complete. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, you both get moments like this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to find last-minute gifts that bring presents. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Please God, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir David Brailsford, Jean-Claude Blanc, whoever, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I don't give a fuck. Whoever's listening, who's in charge, please God, give that to me. I swear to God. Welcome back to the social media derby, the first social media derby of 2024. How you doing, John? You good?
Yeah, mate, not too bad, apart from the terrible couple of results that Arsenal have just gone through. But other than that, not bad. How about you?
Yeah, well, United haven't had too good of a time either, have we? Pretty similar results, all in all. 3 matches each to analyse on this week's pod. And then a special segment looking ahead to some New Year's resolutions for both Man United and Arsenal in 2024. But before we get into that, for those of you watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if possible, and let us know what you think about the podcast. Let's get into the games, because obviously, super busy festive period. United have played 3 games, 1 win, 2 defeats. Really poor defeats, but really not things that you couldn't predict. I think all United fans and probably rival fans at this point just expect the unexpected from us. So yeah, we managed to probably win our hardest fixture of the lot and lose the 2 other fixtures over this period. Arsenal as well, probably a bit more surprising. Again, you've probably done better in the one hard match that you probably had over this festive period, and then lost the other 2. So yeah, I can't even remember what what the spirits were in the last pod, like what we were coming off the back of those results, because we've just had such a poor period, both of us. But let's get into, I guess, the results on the Arsenal side, since you guys have just finished your game against Fulham just now. Johns, what have you made of the 3 matches? First of all, obviously, to refresh everyone's memory, 1-1 away at Anfield, a 2-0 surprise home defeat to West Ham, and then just recently a 2-1 away defeat to Fulham. What have you made of your 3 games then, Johns?
They're all not performances to be proud of, right? Like the game against Liverpool, I get that everyone's quite happy that we were quite resolute in our defending and just happy to get away with, a point, right? To get out of Anfield without being slapped. But, I mean, we didn't watch the second half. We were travelling at the time, but I know for a fact we were getting absolutely smashed in that second half, and we're lucky to not have basically lost that match in the second half. Even in the first half, after we scored, essentially, they were all over us, and there was nothing we could really do. We've shown quite clearly now, at least, that in a lot of these games, if teams come out against us and really push us and press us and bully us, we don't have the backbone to contend with them. We just kind of have to sit there and take their licks and hope we can try and get some sort of counter-attack and maybe break quickly and get a goal. But I mean, in that, obviously in the Liverpool game, you saw the whole meme of 5 players on 1, basically, with Declan Rice just kind of looking at this massive wall of attackers coming at him. And people are trying to give him credit. And yeah, credit where credit's due. He's obviously not given up. He hasn't panicked and all of that other stuff. And he's done as good a job he probably could have. But at the same time, why are we in positions where we've got 5-on-1s, right? And the fact that Trent didn't put it away and he hit the bar and whatever else, we're just lucky to get away with that. So that's the first thing. Then these 2 games against West Ham and the travesty that I've just seen, or the shocking performance that I've just seen against Fulham, they're just terrible. But at home against West Ham, we have so many shots on goal. It reminds me of the whole Liverpool United game, right? Where we're talking about having shots on goal, but actually not doing anything with them.
Yeah.
It's shocking. And we're going to go and blame, oh, the ball was over the line, the ball was out of play, whatever else. It doesn't matter if the ball was out of play or not. Why are we going 1-0 down, 2-0 down to West Ham? Why are we not scoring at home against West Ham? No offense to them. They're a good team. They've been putting in great results. David Moyes has managed to get a tune out of that team for sure, and they've got really good players. But we're supposed to be trying to win the league here. And we can't even beat West Ham at home. With so much on the line, we've just come off the back of let's be honest, a lucky result against West Ham, against Liverpool, and we can't get anything against West Ham. It's shocking. Everyone's asking me, why aren't you more confident we're going to win the league? This is why I'm not confident. Then we go and play Fulham. We get a lucky goal. No, I'm not even going to say a lucky goal. Let's say a goal against the run of play, right?
Yeah, it was a good goal.
It was a good goal. Martinelli, well played to get that. Obviously, Saka, good reactions to get it into the back of the net. But from then on, what did we do? We just got bullied off the ball 24/7. Calvin Bassey knocking people over. And I can't even blame the ref, because most of what they did was smart, right? They gave away a lot of fouls. They didn't give away a lot of fouls in bad positions or bad times in the match, so they didn't get yellow cards. But they just bullied us off the ball, left, right, and centre. And you just saw it over and over again. Odegaard has to take 15 touches of the ball before he does anything with it. Declan Rice can't play massively progressive passes. Havertz was almost nowhere to be seen. Eddie Nketiah does nothing off the ball. He does, like I said to you in the chat, it's a 4-3-2 when we've got him on against a bullying team, because he's doing nothing off the ball. And this little tiny pitch that they've got, we're not putting balls in behind. So why are you starting Eddie Nketiah?
Yeah.
It's terrible choice of team selection on the day, right? Putting Kiwior at left back. I know that everyone's going to say, oh yeah, Fulham shouldn't be like the hardest test for us. We should be able to beat them with the second strength or whatever else side we're talking about. But let's not take Fulham for mugs. They came out there, Marco Silva, with a great, way to play, with a great style of football to get a result against us. Not always the best looking to watch, right? But it's proper English football. They stoked us, and we couldn't do anything about it. Absolutely no bottle, no backbone. As soon as you bring on Tomiyasu, you see we get a little bit better, right? And we stop being quite as bad. But on the attacking end, we've got nothing. We're trying to force everything through the middle all the time. No more overlapping happening anymore. It's just cut back, pass it backwards to Odegaard or to Rice, whoever it is, pass it back into the middle, try and go again, and try and slip through balls when they've got 5 people defending compact in the centre of the pitch. Why are we doing that? Take advantage of people like Rice, like people like Havertz, some of our better players, people like Gabby Jesus, whip balls out from the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Use overlaps to get, clear shots at goal, to try and do something with the ball. Instead of just forcing it through Odegaard over and over again so he can play these dinky little passes. We're not going to get those off. They defended well and smartly, and we couldn't do anything about it. We looked impotent out there. And this is what I was telling you about before. We've got one style of play that's quite easy to figure out. And as soon as you figure it out, if you've got decently good players for that system, we lose or we can't score. And it looks like Arteta's got no plan B. He doesn't know what to do. As soon as that doesn't work, he just starts throwing on random ass subs. Takes off Kiwior for Tomiyasu. Then he takes off Nketiah. Then he takes off Ben White, and we go to 3 at the back or whatever we're trying to do at the end. I switched it off at 80 minutes. It's rubbish. I'm not watching that. It was honestly these last 3 results, even the Liverpool game, are the 3 worst performances I've seen in 18 months.
Yeah, I understand you. I think the Liverpool one's a bit harsh, grouping that in there because, Anfield is a difficult place. And we were joking about it when we watched the first half and then kind of watched back the highlights later on. That, the crowd turned up and they made it a difficult game for you guys. It wasn't quite the same as the United-Liverpool game where I feel like the crowd was dead. And like you said, the game was more comparable, I guess, to like the Arsenal-West Ham game in terms of Liverpool having loads of shots but not really threatening. Against you guys, it was more even, I would say. But in the second half, like the only chance that stands out to me is the 5-on-1 where God knows how Trent's managed to crash the bar with that chance. Like, you'd put your money in your house on on him tucking that away, the form that he's been in, and all the options that Salah had to kind of play the ball to. So I wouldn't quite put that in there with worst performances, but I get you. Coupled with these other two, it stinks. To get 1 point from 9, with arguably only one fixture really being super tricky. The Liverpool away game, I think traditionally everyone would accept is quite a difficult game, right? Like they've won pretty much all their games at home. I think they've only drawn to us and drawn to you guys now in the last, 14, 15 games or something. It's up there with Villa's home form in terms of results. So I wouldn't quite put that in there, but I get it. If you lose at home to West Ham, which, to be honest, that is the smelliest result of the three, and then lose at Fulham, yeah, it's a really poor Christmas period. And like you were saying to me on the group chat, you shouldn't, because I did, chuck this out there and say, look, you guys have this bottle thing is thrown at Arsenal a lot. Understand it, because the way the last two seasons have ended, you've been very close to achieving a certain goal, and then because of really your own performances, you've fallen short at the end, and that really you could put down to your own players, your coach, to why that's happened. And this season, I've said it from early, I felt Arsenal have really risen to the occasions when things have got sticky. You think away to Luton, you think a couple of other games early on in the season at home to United, late goals, where you've shown a bit of steel and cojones, as Troy Deeney says. But like you rightly said in the group chat, you shouldn't really be needing all that bottle early on in the season. You need it later on when things get really tight. When you're either in the midst of a title race or you're leading or you're trying to chase and catch someone up and you're having these tough kind of games. That's when you need your best players to rise to the occasion and pull you out of the mire. Not really in the first 15 games. It doesn't really count for anything because, let's be real. You guys were top at Christmas. You guys have been top at different periods of this first half of the season. And now you're in fourth and 1 point ahead of Tottenham. It doesn't really matter if you're going to start tailing off and, players are going to start falling out of form and Arteta's going to start making mistakes. Because I do think, especially in the last two results, Arteta's got to take some of the blame as well. I don't think tactically he's made the right calls. I think, it's going to sound crazy, but David Moyes did out-tactic him in that game. It wasn't just a case of low block and inshallah. They were actually, they're counter-attacking moves. West Ham have got styles and patterns of play. They actually executed very well against you. It wasn't just, it could have been 3-0, let's be real, right? Like, Raya saves a penalty. It's looking a little bit closer than maybe it could have been. And you have 30-plus shots, but, feel free to correct me, but I can't remember any that were, remotely close to scoring. I think Saka hit the post with one, but the angle was tight on that, and he kind of made that look like a bit bigger chance than it was. But apart from that, you guys didn't really do anything. So, yeah, there's got to be some question marks put at Arteta. And like you said, we were talking about this Fulham game, because at the beginning it was a bit against the run of play, but, Martinelli and Saka looked like they were going to get a bit of joy against their fullbacks today. And I was saying that maybe having Kivior and White in the fullback positions on your side gives them a bit more freedom. But after that point, I have to say, Anthony Robinson and Castagna then got the better of Martinelli and Saka for the rest of the game. So what's going on, right? You see these little flashes of, maybe the form's going to kick, turn around. They're gonna start, playing better and be more potent. But almost like the flick of a coin, things just go back to looking really unthreatening and just didn't look like you guys were going to score after 2-1, right?
It's a crap excuse though, man, because it's got nothing to do with whether the two of them are playing well or badly. We've created a system that doesn't allow them to play well. Of course, if they have to keep cutting back inside and playing it out to Odegaard and then waiting for something to happen with Eddie Nketiah who's just snoozing on man's shoulder, like, what are we expecting to happen? Right? You see in the game, all of our best chances came from Martinelli or from Saka, right? Let's not forget, Saka blazed one over the bar that he should have put top bins. Martinelli hit about 3 shots wide where he could have at least got them on target. Not saying necessarily any of those were, I'm going to say, strong chances or like high XG type chances, but they were creating all of the stuff for us. despite the fact that the whole system is built to just keep on funneling things back through the middle against a team that's playing 5 people at the back, essentially, for the last 30 minutes of the match. And they're all compact on a tiny pitch. I don't want to talk about Saka. I don't want to talk about Martinelli because it's got nothing to do with them. The style that we're doing is crap, right? Or it's not even crap, but it doesn't work against everyone. We can't just keep spamming the same buttons. It's like we're playing Street Fighter and just spamming Hadouken every 5 seconds. We can't keep doing that. There's got to be another way to play. Against West Ham, we had 74% possession. Supposed to have scored 3 goals from that. 30 shots, 5 big chances missed. It stinks, man. How can we not get a single goal from 30 shots, 8 shots on target, and 5 of them big chances? We've got 74% of the possession. And they put away 2 clinical goals. That's all they really needed. They had 3 shots on target, 2 big chances, and they put both of them away, and we're done. The style doesn't work all the time. What's the point of having 74% possession if you're not even going to do anything with it? And today it's the same thing. I don't even think we had very strong possession stats today at all. We just got completely bullied off the ball. Palhinha slapping Odegaard off the ball every 5 seconds. Calvin Bassey pushing over Saka, pushing over Nketiah. Anthony Robertson doing what he usually does, which is being very physical but also very rapid. It's the same stuff. And we're doing nothing with it. And then they've got players like Kearney and these kinds of players that are quick, 1-touch, 2-touch football, playing the ball into their wingers, swinging one into the box. And I'll be honest with you, Saliba looked terrible today. He gave away at least 2 big mistakes. They didn't end up in anything. One of them nearly a penalty, but it was in the end a bit of a dive from De Cordova-Reid, right? The other one, he nearly got sent off at the end, which definitely wasn't a sending off, by the way. But, he's making these big mistakes. And the reason is we're too slow. And I'll be honest with you, Rice can't do it all by himself. When you've got 5 flying attackers coming forward at you and you've got Palhinha behind them just clapping people over to left, right and centre, Havertz doing nothing, Odegaard doing nothing off the ball, what are we expecting? And then you've got Kiwior. I don't even know what position this Don is. He's definitely not a left back though. And he wasn't that bad, but it just shows you, I don't know what Arteta's trying to do here, right? And the style that he tries to play doesn't work against everyone. So is he just going to keep on spamming Hadouken, or is he going to actually try and do something different? And I'm not saying we have to do something different every game. I'm not saying he has to tinker like Pep. But bruv, like Pep saw it, right? He saw that style of football that he was trying to play didn't always work. So he made some tweaks here and there. He changed up a couple of players in his squad to allow him to do something different. And he got more success. Are we just going to not learn from his mistakes? We're just going to learn 2 years later every single time. After everyone's already figured out how to play against him, then we're little mini him. We're Pep Jr. And everyone's already figured out how to play against it. And then they just batter us off the ball. When's he going to start doing something of his own and start figuring out things before he sees Pep fail at them?
Yeah, it's a hard one, man, because I think like most fan bases, you lot are trying to understand what's going on. And I've heard some Arsenal fans say kind of like, you've adjusted the style of play. He's tinkered with the midfield. Your fullbacks are not playing the same way. And all of these things have affected your performance, right? It's more about control and less about, some of the really exciting attacking football you were playing last season. And then I've heard obviously some people say, we need to, like yourself, and I agree with you to a certain extent, you need to develop a more distinctive, different style of play that you can use when you, for example, face a more defensive team or a team that, doesn't have the weaknesses that style of play can take advantage of. So it's kind of like you're kind of stuck in between the two, right? Like, do you scrap this new style of play that Arteta's trying to do, or like the Arsenal 2.0, where I feel like it's not drastically different than last season, but there are elements which are quite clearly different than last season, and go for something a bit more different. And I'm not saying like hoofball or Bolton, Sam Allardyce style, but try something a bit more different. Or do you just go back to what you were doing last season? To be honest,
it's not even an either or though. It's about having multiple styles. You can't just have one style and just spam it over and over again, because good managers will figure it out.
Yeah, no,
you've got to have a couple style. I'm not even saying replace the current style with a new one. I'm saying add a style that your current players can play, and mix it up a little
Yeah.
bit. We've got a big
Yeah.
physical team, right? Why aren't we trying to use that? Saka's one of the strongest people you see for his size. Havertz, we've got now this lanky, 6'2", whatever, lumbering Don in the middle of the park. You've got Rice now, who's an engine, right? Why aren't we using that? We got Gabby Jesus, who's a nightmare. Like, why aren't we using these things, these other attributes that they have, to try and get something different against some of these teams who are going to do this against us every time? Bully ball and low block. We've got no answer for them. Newcastle as well. They did it to us. Bully ball and low block. They do it together. And what do we have? We can't score a goal against them.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And you do have that. That's a good point. You do have actually a bunch of really big dons. Like, that's not even including your back line, which if you play Tomiyasu, everyone's above 6'2", pretty much. Gabriel, Saliba, White, Tomiyasu, they're massive. And to be honest, you guys are pretty good at set plays. So I don't know, maybe there's a style where you try and incorporate and try and maximize how many set pieces you have, so you can try and use that to your advantage. I don't know, but I do agree that probably the truth lies somewhere in the middle, where I honestly believe Arteta's predicted people are going to start, understanding and learning and working out how to play against the Arsenal of last season. So he's tried to preemptively tweak things, but he hasn't tweaked them enough to make them effective, right? So you need to create a new style of play. And to be honest, I do think there's an element of, Papa Wenger, Klopp in him, where he's been a bit too loyal to certain players in your squad that have kind of proven that they're not up to it to play at the level that you're trying to compete at, right? For going for titles, hopefully challenging for Champions League. I don't think Eddie Nketiah is a bad player. I think he's a good player. But I think if you're going for top four, if you're going for third or whatever, he can play in your squad. He can be effective. But if you're going for a title, I don't know how much he can contribute. There's a bunch of other players, Reece Nelson, a bunch of other players in your squad. But if you freed up those slots and you found players who can play a slightly different style, like, for example, a lot of Arsenal fans want Ivan Toney. I guess the big selling point for Ivan Toney is he can play a very different style to the one that you currently play. And he would offer you a very different option to Gabby Jesus, right? And one that I think could help you in times where you are playing a low block, or when you are playing someone who's a bit more physical. Ivan Toney's a unit, right? He's going to be able to fight against centre-backs better than Eddie Nketiah would. And so there's things like that, I guess, which I think a lot of Arsenal fans are shouting for. It's not like a big secret thing that I've pulled out of my ass, that it's a tactico thing that I've seen on the dark alleys of Twitter or something like that. That's something that a lot of mainstream Arsenal outlets are saying. I'm sure you probably agree with it, right? Maybe not necessarily Toney in particular, but that kind of style of player that can help you change how you approach these sort of games. But yeah, one thing's for certain, you can't keep playing this way against these teams that incorporate these tactics. It's not working, right? Even before, when you weren't getting the bad results, you had warnings. Luton's a warning. Luton away is a warning, right? You've had Fulham at home, which was a warning. You've had a couple of other games where things have been nip and tuck, where I've praised you guys for Bottle, but, understandably, like you've said, you shouldn't really be needing Bottle. You should just need a tactical plan to be able to overcome them, not a last minute, Declan Rice winner or some sort of other big kind of defining moment. A late Havertz goal, I think, was it away at Burnley or something like that, where you guys scored a late goal as well. There's instances where tactical flexibility would definitely help you guys, but you know what? It's probably easier said than done. Who knows? I'm sure Arteta's smart enough and he's more than capable enough to have seen this stuff coming. Maybe there's a master plan coming in January when you sign out Ivan Toney, you sign someone else. But I get it, man. This run of results stinks. We'll get to United in a minute, but yeah, it's not a great way to go into 2024 off the back of two, in particular, really poor results. Who would you say have been your best, or probably more likely worst performers over this period? Because I do think there have been a couple of particular stinkers. And try and look at the games in total as a three, because I think today, like you said, Saliba didn't have his best game, but I think that's quite isolated to the Fulham game. I think he wasn't that bad in the others. But who do you think you guys need to maybe take out the firing line or bring in? Do you have any ideas?
I'm not going to talk about who is worst and who is best because we had differing squads across the three of them, right? It's difficult to like eye out specific players. I haven't seen anyone that's been consistently crap across all three games. They've had ups and downs. It's just I think the weakness, the crap has been the tactics. It's 3 games. We've lost to West Ham twice now this season, you know. We lost in the EFL Cup as well. Don't forget that we lost 3-1 to them in the EFL Cup. And we've come out and lost to them again 2-0. Right? So I'm not gonna like specifically name players. Like there's the same players that we've had problems with before. Zinchenko is a tactical or defensive liability, right? He's going to give away those chances. I know a lot of people will argue that on the other end of the football, right, on the attacking side, he offers a lot that we don't necessarily have, and maybe we suffered from that today. Who knows? But he's constantly been a defensive weakness of ours. On top of that, in the striking position, we're still not looking very clinical, right? Whether it's Gabby Jesus, whether it's Eddie Nketiah, even Saka, Martinelli, they're not looking clinical, right? Like the goal today that we got is not a freak goal, but it's a goal, right? It's not like a well worked goal where you're like, oh, that's class. They've both done outstandingly well there, and I can't think of any of these games where we've had outstandingly good attacking play either, right? Against Liverpool, our goal wasn't crazy good either. So at the end of the day, attacking wise, I'm not liking what I'm seeing, but I think that's more a victim of the system than it is of the individual performances. And then defensively, of course, Zinchenko's been somewhat of a liability defensively, which I think we all know is going to happen. David Raya still continues to look a bit shaky. Ben White's nursing an injury, and you can see it in the way that he plays. He just needs to be given a rest because at this point in time, he's just getting worse and worse in the defensive performances. So, I mean, I'm not going to say any one player is really the reason why we've had this downfall. It's just a failure of the system and a failure of the manager, if I'm honest with you. So,
yeah, it's a hard one, man, because we've obviously got like a little episode outline that we kind of fill in before we kick off each podcast, and we kind of highlight some of the best and worst performers and such. And it's quite hard to analyze them in a bunch, I guess. You're right. But it's interesting because I put in Odegaard and Rice as the better performers kind of midway through some of the games. And it's hard now because I think Bryce probably had his worst game against West Ham. I don't think it was catastrophic by any stretch, right? But it just wasn't his usual 7, 8 out of 10. He slightly dropped to probably like a 5 or something like that, right? It wasn't absolutely abysmal. Obviously gave away the penalty at the end, but the game was gone by then, so it was kind of not really any kind of big impact on the game. I think Odegaard is such a good player, but like you said it today, in a game when you need things to go quickly and you need to zip passes and you need to play one touch and a bit more instinctively, he's the type of player that he needs to get lots of touches of the ball, right? Which can be a positive when you're trying to, I get why, Arteta's maybe looking at him and think that's a good thing to have when you're trying to unlock a defense, right? But when you're playing a team like Fulham, you don't need that. Like you said, you need someone to like just be the connector, get the ball and pass it quickly and give it to the people that can really hurt Fulham. And I don't think Odegaard was a player that could hurt Fulham today. The way they set up and the physicality is going to always make a game really difficult for him to have a positive impact on, right? He's either going to, kind of shy away from it, or he's going to get on the ball too much and try too hard and not actually give it to, as much as we talked about Saka and Martinelli. I think you're right. The best things still came from them in this game. And pretty much every game, right? Even if they're not necessarily playing their best to their levels, still the most impactful, output that you get in a game is from Saka and Martinelli. So, I don't know. I just think, there's got to be some sort of work, whether it's with Odegaard himself or whether it's with, maybe looking at some tactical tweaks to try and get him to do something different. Because just getting the ball to Odegaard and getting him to, touch it out of his feet a couple of times, coming on his left and just swing crosses in, like you said, it became really, really predictable. And I understand why you just turn it off with 10 minutes to go, because it just didn't look like, if you kept playing that game for 3 or 4 hours, like you guys were actually going to create another chance to score a goal. But yeah, it's hard to judge them, I guess, across the 3 games, because I think Odegaard was decent against West Ham, and against Liverpool, he had a big impact on the game as well to help you guys go ahead. So yeah, it's a hard one, man. Let's hope the next run of fixtures. We're not playing in the league now for a couple of weeks, so let's hope the FA Cup offers you guys a little bit of respite. And obviously, you got Liverpool, so it's not going to be the easiest game ever. But yeah, let's hope things take a turn for the better. Let's get into my pain then, which has been loading now for a couple of days. 2-0 loss to West Ham as well. Bloody hell, West Ham have pumped both of us, haven't they? Over this Christmas time. Lovely. So 2-0 loss away at the London Stadium, I think it's called now. Then the 3-2 win against Aston Villa. And then, yesterday, 2-1 defeat at Forest. I've got to be honest, man. We watched... Did we watch the West Ham? Yeah, we watched the West Ham game. We watched the Villa game together as well. Only the Forest game yesterday we didn't watch together. West Ham game, I've got to be honest, we really should have scored in the first half. We had a lot of threatening, like half chances. We had a lot of kind of opportunities where if Garnacho, if Bruno makes the right decision, we've got a really easy chance and a higher chance of scoring. But we were just not clinical. And to be honest, if you take that second half against Villa away, we haven't looked clinical probably for a couple of months, to be honest. I think we're coming into that Villa game off the back of not scoring in our previous 4 games. And yeah, really, really poor. Second half against against West Ham was pretty shambolic. Onana should be saving that first shot. Luke Shaw goes to sleep. Jared Bowen does his customary goal against us. And then, unfortunate mistake by Kobe Mainu for the second goal. But I've got to be honest, Kudus has got a lot to do after that, and he absolutely packs us. Both Johnny Evans and Onana again. So, no real complaints. We were poor in that game. We could have scored in the first half, but to be honest, I don't think that would have changed the result. West Ham were probably still likely to beat us. As soon as they start to attack us, I was in my pants basically. So I'm not too distraught at that defeat. Going to the London Stadium's difficult. They've got players that can really hurt you, and we were poor, and so a 2-0 loss I think is just about fair. Aston Villa, I don't know really how to analyse that game, because the 2 goals they scored were absolutely shambolic, but both from kind of set plays. I don't know really who to blame. I've seen some blame going on Onana for the first goal, but we've seen those kind of goals go in umpteen times. Someone puts a ball in that danger zone. The goalie doesn't know whether to come out. Defenders are stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and it floats in. So I'm not really going to go big on Onana on that one. Obviously, I think a commanding world-class goalie like Alisson or Courtois or something like that will probably claim that ball or do better. But the kind of goalie Onana is, I don't expect him to do anything beyond what happened. A second goal's poor, no marking, just shambolic again. And the comeback. To be honest, I think we got super lucky with that. And it's only because Styles makes fights and Aston Villa play a high line every single where they go. They've gone to Anfield and got pumped off the back of it. I'm sure when they go to the Emirates, they'll, struggle against Saka and Martinelli on the last shoulder. If they play a high line, it's basically suicide. Don't know why they continue to do it. To be honest, I think it's partly arrogance. We stink, and they probably thought, 2-0 up, even if United score 1 back, they're not going to be able to pull 3 out of their asses and win the game. And somehow we managed to do it. The only real positive was that Højlund scored. We could finally get the 0014 or whatever the number is right now off our backs. But I wasn't overly gassed by that result. Yesterday, I don't know about you, Jonts, because I've obviously talked to you about the other 2 games, but that game against Forest was one of the worst games I've ever seen. Like we've had a couple of contenders for that previously in the season because we've been pretty poor all season, but that 2-1 defeat was so shit. It was so poor. And I saw a compilation of a bunch of goals where we've conceded from cutbacks. And people say this stuff about we don't have a style of play. We do, man. It's just shit. And it's just one where we go all out attack and none of our players like to defend. Because honestly, I think I've seen that compilation. There must have been 15 to 20 goals we've conceded by, a player just running out of defence on the wing, cutting it back, and someone tucking it away. With, either McTominay, Ericsson, Bruno, Casemiro, whoever's supposed to play in midfield, basically just coming into screen right at the end when the player's tucking it away. So there's no defensive responsibility. No one's looks like they, want to be held accountable for that. No one looks like they actually want to do it. There's no desire in defending. And that's the style of play. We just want to attack. And we basically want to clear the midfield at every chance we have, even when we have a defensive midfielder supposed to be playing, whether it's been Casemiro early in the season or McTominay now. The only player who has the defensive discipline to stick there has been Kobe Mainoo, and he's 18. And for some reason, Ten Hag decided yesterday to take him off at half-time and then say it was because he's young and he's played too much football. Yeah, man, absolutely shocking. Even though we've got one win out of the three, and it was against, arguably the best team out of the three. Yeah, really poor festive period. And yeah, man, I think this is what United are going to be until the end of the season. Somehow managed to find victories, but also, plenty of defeats. I think we've lost 9 already in the league, 14 already in the season. Ten Hag's breaking records. But yeah, that's enough for my waffle. Johnson, what did you make of the 3 games?
I mean, the games where statistically you were the better team, you lost. And the game where you were statistically the worst team, you won. So I don't know what to expect from you guys anymore. Just same way I don't really know what to expect from us anymore either. It's just like you can do all of the statistically good things to do and lose. And the other team is just more clinical than you. Right? Against West Ham, they get 2 chances, they put both of them away. Even though you had significantly more possession, you just couldn't finish anything, right? And they could. And as much as we all want to say possession football is what we want to do, right? And we all kind of look down on counter-attacking, kind of not possession-based football, kind of sitting on the back foot and then counter-punching, essentially. As much as we all look down on it, it seems to work really well against, I'll be honest with you, teams like you, teams like us, teams like, even City to a certain extent sometimes get caught out by that, right? Most of the time they can just bully teams off the pitch with just much better quality than the other team has, even if they are playing a low block or whatever else. But for all of us, like really high possession based kind of slow it down type teams, these teams come up against us and win. And with Aston Villa, I think you're 100% right. It was arrogance. I don't know why they kind of went 2 goals up and kind of thought it was going to be a coast. And then Garnacho pulls something out of his arms, and suddenly you're back in the game. And you've done it a couple of times this season now where, you're able to come back, right? Like you did it with that McTominay kind of sub on where he came back and helped you win. You've done it against Villa. You're a team that's capable of doing that. Momentum is everything in the game of football, particularly for a team like Man United, where it's so much based on confidence. And then yesterday, against Nottingham Forest, you're right. It wasn't a great game to watch, but it was pretty even. Right? I don't think one team really stuck out as the better team in terms of performance in that match. It was just a question of which one of these 2 teams can finish their dinner, and they could finish it more than you could, right? Like you say, the Morgan Gibbs-White was a good finish, but I mean, you can't look at that goal and be like, oh, there's nothing we can do about that. There's like 1,000 things you could be doing about that you didn't do. And Nottingham Forest played pretty basic, simple football, kept it easy and kept it simple, and beat you. And it just goes to show we can do all we want with all this possession and trying to play through the lines and whatever else. If you come up against a well-organised team with the right kind of profile of players, you can't do anything to it. And unfortunately, you guys, I mean, outside of Garnacho, don't seem to have a player that really can take at the moment at least, take a game by the scruff of its neck and just be like, you know what, I'm going to kind of exert force, kind of force the other team to concede. I'm going to just take the game into my hands. You don't seem to have a player like that right now in form to be able to do that for you, right? And at the moment, I'll be honest with you, Arsenal don't really seem like we've got a player that can do that in these last 3 games either. So it just goes to show team football, well-organised, well-structured, with everyone playing in the right direction, set up in the right way against the right opposition, you're going to win. It doesn't matter. As you said before, styles make fights, right? We can talk all we want about, the beautiful game and which team we think has better players and this, that, and the other. Don't matter. Andy Ruiz will knock Anthony Joshua on his ass as well. So it really doesn't matter if we want to do all these things if we don't win. And unfortunately, you got as you said, you got the best, played against the best team and got the win, but against the two worst teams, you lost. And it was all because they set up the right way against you, and you guys weren't able to execute your plan the way that you should do, which is clinical, finishing your chances.
Yeah, man, it's kind of been a trend, I guess, of the season. Well, even if I think back to earlier results, right? Like, I know we lost away to Spurs, but if you watch that first 50 minutes of that game, we should have been 2 or 3-0 up. Like, we had all the big chances, and Spurs like to play under Ange, right? High line for life. Like, they play football, they go for it, and we've done or looked better. I wouldn't say done because we've had some poor results against those kind of teams as well, but we've created more chances. And I think the way we're set up, if a team attacks us, then generally we just go, you know what, we'll go and attack you too. That's why if you look at the Champions League, all the goals that have been involved in our games, 4-3s and 3-3s and 3-2s and 2-2s and whatever, like there's been goals galore. And it's partly because we haven't played anyone that have decided, you know what, we're just going to sit back and chill and defend. Everyone have gone for it. The only game where I guess there weren't really, gilt-edged chances were, the Bayern game right at the end when things were kind of lost for us and we didn't want to get thumped again. So, I mean, we're obviously on a lesser scale to you guys because you're still, have had some decent results and you're just generally a better team than us at the moment. But yeah, we can't play against teams that kind of, like you said, are a well-oiled machine in whatever style they decide to employ. Like David Moyes in West Ham, he's had his hands on that squad for a couple of years now, right? Like even though he's got some ballers in there, they all play within the tactical system that he's set up. Very hard to beat. We've both found this over the Christmas period in different ways, I guess, because I think at home they go for it a bit more than they do away. But equally, we've both kind of been counterpunched and lost to them because they kind of are better at their style than both of us are. And Nottingham Forest, that's really the one that stings the most because Nuno's just got in the door. Don't get me wrong, there was a bit of a new manager bounce vibe about that game yesterday. That crowd, I don't know if it was just my headphones or whatever, but they sounded so loud. They were up for it. And Nuno just got them playing in a way that I could imagine Nuno getting in one of his teams to play. This makes me go back to Wolves United games back when he was their manager. They always were smelly, terrible, low-quality games, but more times than not, they would beat us because he would get into them, he'd get them understanding how to play, and under Ollie, and now under Ten Hag, we're clueless in comparison. And I agree with you. It wasn't like they absolutely battered us. It wasn't like we, threw in, Onana threw balls in his net. But they were just completely symptomatic of how poor we are in certain aspects of the game. Like those cutback goals, honestly, if you see that compilation that I saw, and you imagine that's your team conceding those goals over and over and over and over and over again, this can't be just players forgetting to do their jobs. This can't just be certain players just being absolutely horseshit and they decide, then they can't do it. It's because they either decide they don't want to do it or because the tactical system is asking them not to do it or not valuing those jobs highly enough for them to actually do it. Right? Like, I can scapegoat people and I can say, Scott McTominay, you're absolutely fucking shit, mate. Get out of the club and go on a mad rant, right? As you called it yesterday, jokes, rants and ants. I can just lose my mind and just say, F Scott McTominay, F Antony, F all these different people, F Onana, all these people that I think have not done well. But essentially, if Ten Hag's asking them to just, bomb forward or try and play super attacking football and they don't have any emphasis on their defensive duties, then it feels a bit harsh hammering them, right? I can hammer them for not being good enough, sure, But effectively, if you're not being asked to do that tactically, like you said with the Arsenal games, Ten Hag got to hold a lot of this corn. You can't lose 2-0 away to West Ham when you've actually had gilt-edged chances. You've got to play the players that you think are going to be the most clinical. You know what I mean? Like if you don't play them, then we're just going to get these same results over and over again. The ineffectiveness from Antony. Garnacho is a streaky young player. He's young. He's going to have games like that against Villa, and then he's going to have games like yesterday or against West Ham where he basically does F all or he's not clinical at all. So, yeah, man, it's not looking good for us. The only slight hope that we have is, this Ineos situation happens and then, then we might be able to affect some change. But that's not happening this season, right? They're going to look at this next 6 months as a way for them to analyse the situation, do an audit of the playing staff and the non-playing staff and everything at United, and we might see something happen in the summer or next season. But I don't believe they're going to get rid of Ten Hag unless, we drop below Chelsea and start looking, like we're being pulled into a relegation battle or something like that. I don't see them making that change if we stay where I predict that we're going to stay between like 6th and 9th or whatever. If we stay in that zone, they're not going to fire him.
The only thing that is, and I mean, you said a great point, which is Man United fans, Arsenal fans, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, same kind of thing, right? We love to call out the players and say, oh, these players are crap, these players are crap. At the end of the day, I've been a victim of that, and I think it's the wrong way to look at this, right? Because there are certain players that are just obviously attitude-wise, they clearly stick out and don't want to do their job, and usually a smart manager gets rid of them or they don't play, right? You look at Sancho. It's a great example. Doesn't have the right attitude. He's not playing. Or Aubameyang doesn't have the right attitude. You're not captain anymore. We're going to sell you. That's very different from a player like Rashford or a player like Odegaard or whatever else, where they look stinky in all these games. They clearly don't have an attitude. Or I think, to be honest with you, I think everyone's harsh a little bit on Rashford, really, in terms of an attitude problem. He's been doing this now for quite a few years, where he's been scapegoated essentially, or the world has been put on his shoulders because he's the man clad that's supposed to get you guys out of the mud and that. But really, there's no major attitude problem with either of those players. Yes, I don't like the idea of not tracking back. Yes, I don't like the idea of just like spraying balls all over the place and losing the ball 24/7. I don't like the ideas of doing those things, and they are bad decision making from those players. But it can't be on the players. It's a team sport. You've got 11 people on the pitch, and a goal goes in. Yes, there can be individual errors, but over a large sample period of, like, let's say a year or a season or even half of a year, if your team is repeatedly doing that, it can't be on the players. Because if a player was doing that, like let's say Rashford had a really stinky attitude, sack him off immediately. It doesn't matter if you're going to lose your job, because you keep playing him, you're going to lose your job anyway. Sack him off immediately and play somebody else in that position until he fixes up or whatever else. So that's where I look at a lot of your players and I think there's no major attitude problems in there. This system just doesn't make any of them look good, and the system is clearly not working. So I think, as much as a lot of your fans don't want to like put too much blame on Ten Hag, he's got to hold smoke for it. And the biggest failing is, I think, a sporting director, the CEO, all of these people are really important. But you know what they're really important for that people forget? It's for checking the manager and saying, what the hell are you doing right now, mate? This is not working. Change that up. Right now, Ten Hag has no one that has the actual, let's say, credibility to go to him and say, what the F are you doing? This is crap. You need to change something up. And he's not going to listen to any of them, because who have you got in your club? You've got a bunch of capitalists. They ain't going to be able to tell him anything apart from you're fired or play this player that we've just paid 70 million for, right? And outside of that, he doesn't have to listen to them from a football credibility standpoint, right? With Arteta, you even get that feeling too, that he thinks he's the king of the mountain, right? He's the king of the jungle. Everyone has to listen to what he's got to do. And I hope Edu's saying in his ear, what the fuck are you doing? Why have you brought him on? Why are you not changing up this style? There's got to be accountability, but there's also got to be a strong unit, the checks and balances to say, that's why are you doing that? Stop doing that. That's crap. It clearly doesn't work. So I 100% agree with you that the onus needs to be on the manager, because at the end of the day, with the group of players that you've got, unless you've got 25 people that have attitude problems, these are Premier League footballers. You need to be getting something better out of them. Look at Everton. He comes in immediately. Sean Dyche gets much better out of these players that you think, like everyone thinks, oh, who are they? They're not that great, right? Same thing for Aston Villa. Unai comes in and makes Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa, makes all these players that were always good but never like in the limelight. He makes all of them look class. So it can't always be on the players. It's got to be on the manager at a certain point, because these players are all good players. They can play if you let them. If you give them the right tools, you give them the right system. So there's got to be a lot of blame to go to the manager. But at the same time, I understand where you guys come from, that you don't have the structure to keep the manager in check. And I agree with you that I don't think a change will come. The only eventuality I can see where Ten Hag gets sacked is you go on a really stinky run of games where the fans force the hand and they're just like, get this guy out now. That's the only way I can see it happening earlier than the summer. But I agree with you. I don't think he will do that because he's so inconsistent. He can't even be consistent in being crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's so up and down. There's always ups. It's not all down.
Yeah, but
if you get me,
but that's inevitable, right? It goes to the point you're just saying, right? We don't have completely horse-shite players. There are some good players in there, right? Rashford is not poor. Rashford is a very good player. Maybe he's not world-class. Maybe he's not English Mbappe, like all our fans hyped him up to be at certain points when he's been very good. But he's a very, very good player, right? Like if he's firing at his best, he would be England's left winger, right? I know there's the Grealish rubbish and hype and all that kind of stuff, and Gordon, and there's other flavors of the month. But I think we can all, if we all put our biases to one side, if we look at what a player could do, right, the potential and what they've shown previously, I think Rashford gets that spot. So how can you be that good, right, and then suddenly, you can't be that good and also this shit at the same time, right? They don't make sense. It's all down to confidence. It's all down to tactics. It's all down to whatever's going on in his personal life. They're human beings, right? So you have to look at your employer. Essentially, we would do that, right? We would look at our line managers, our department heads or whatever. If one of us was struggling, we'd go to them to try and basically make sure we do a good enough job at our workplace. And the manager has to have the soft skills and the experience and the general knowledge and whatever expertise to be able to help facilitate that from you, right? Get the best out of you, even when you're in tough moments. It might not make you be able to do your, optimal best work that you've ever produced, but it should be good enough to get you to achieve your targets, even when things are, you're low on confidence, you're going through something, which I think a lot of people have alluded to with Rashford. And then you apply that to all the players that you have. Everyone's different at the club, but we don't have terrible, terrible players. And I saw a stream yesterday with a bunch of United influencers all talking about, this whole concept that if you look at our players on, on our team, our starting 11 on paper, we've got a better starting 11 than a lot of teams that are above us. So why aren't we performing to the level that, I know football's not played on paper, but, you can get a good idea about the quality of your players based on, stats or previous performances or whatever. Maybe not so much on, fees, because we always pay way too much for players. But you look at that and you say, why are we worse off than Spurs? And just getting more out of his players than Ten Hag is, I think it's probably opposite sides of the scale. And just getting much more out of his players, which of course they've got very good players there too. Son's world class in my opinion. Maddison's was playing out of his skin before that. They've got players with potential like Kulusevski and Udogie and Vicario and Van de Ven and all these guys. Saar, playing out of his skin as well. So they've got players that are there that are good, but they're playing above their previous performances or their general skill set at the moment. We've got the opposite. We've got Rashford, who scored 30 goals last season. We've got Casemiro, 5-time Champions League winner. Varane, 5-time Champions League winner. Onana, who's apparently one of the best players, goalkeepers with the ball at his feet. You've got Martinez, who played really well last season. We've got Luke Shaw, who everyone's calling world class, or at least some of the United fan base are saying world class. You've got all these different players, plus the young up and comers, the Garnachos, the Hoylands, the Dallows, the Kobe Mainus or whatever. We should be doing a hell of a lot better than we currently are. So who do you blame for that? You've got to look at the manager, and I'm not someone who goes sack, and move like Roman Abramovich, right? I don't believe in that. But at the same time, you can't just blindly say, oh, it's a structure. Oh, it's the Glazers. Or just go, oh, it's the players. They're all shit. They're all toxic. They're all rubbish. Sure, some of them are, and I would like to get rid of some of them, but some of them are not. Some of them you have to work with and you have to get the best out of them. And if you don't have, like you said, those people in there to be able to help, it all starts from the top. But you got to include the manager when you say starts from the top, because the bottom is the players. The top goes from the management upwards. So if we want to say Ed Woodward, you're shit. Richard Arnold, you're shit. John Murtaugh, you're shit. Which, don't get me wrong, they are all shit. You also got to include the managers in there. The manager's not been good this season. Taking off Kobe Mainu yesterday, the game was 0-0 when he came off. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't his best performance. I definitely think he did look a bit tired. But you can't bring on Scott McTominay to play that position. We've got way too much evidence to know that he wants to go forward and score goals. And he's actually decent at that. He's terrible defensively. He doesn't track back. So why did you decide to do that? You know these players now. It's been 18 months. You know what their strengths and weaknesses are. You know what they're going to do, what potentially could happen if you put them in position. Why didn't he put Hannibal there? Why didn't he look to move someone else into defensive midfield instead? Why did he do McTominay? We know what's going to happen. So you have to look at the manager and say, look, mate, you're stinking it up. And you've been stinking it up pretty much since the turn of the year. Cool, we won the Carabao Cup, but generally we weren't fantastic in that game. Cool, we beat Barcelona, but Barcelona are at one of their lowest ebbs they've ever been, right? And I think it was a combination of them playing shit and us playing fairly well. But then look at the results. 7-0 to Liverpool. We got knocked out by Sevilla, calamitous. We lost to Man City, and in the FA Cup final, I don't even think they played that well. We've honestly had some absolute stinkers coming off the back of last season and coming into this season. So he needs to look at himself, and I agree with you. He's probably going to catch life because there are good enough players in there to pull results like 3-2 against Villa out. But there also are tactical decisions he's making and weaknesses, very clear weaknesses that a lot of our players have that other teams are exploiting. Teams where the manager's slightly, got some sort of tactical nous, they're just going to exploit the fact they know, cutbacks apparently is our kryptonite and everyone's going to be able to score from them. One of the easiest things in football, by the way, but suddenly we can't defend them in the last, 12 months or whatever. So, yeah, man, it's just draining. It's just draining because you look at the fan base and, like you say, some are scapegoating players, some are scapegoating Ten Hag, some are just completely blind and just looking, saying, I missed the structure. We're just going to, talk about the Glazers all the time. The truth is, all of it is a mess right now. And you can see it on the pitch. None of those things are positive. They're all negatives. So you've got to work out how to get the better out of at least the playing side of the club. And if we don't, then it's just going to keep getting worse and we'll end up in mid-table. But we might have to hold it, man. You guys have done it. Lots of teams have done it. Chelsea are currently going through it as well. You've got to go through some pain to get to, the positive side of things.
The last thing I'll say on that is just, as you kind of said, right, from the top down, you've got, even in a publicly traded company, you've got a CEO, but he's not the only one. You've got board of directors on top of him that are telling him what to do. They've got chairmen, right? You got people in there that are supposed to be there to keep accountability on the people that have the power. And I think what we should do as a team and as a fan base, really in general, is when we look at very small instances, right, small parts of a time scale. So let's say an individual error, you can blame the player. Right, that's a low down. If you look over 3 games, if you look over 4 games, if they're continuously making individual errors, or if they're messing up in things that they haven't been told to do, or just not implementing a job, you need to start looking a little bit higher up the chain and say, all right, coaches, managers, what are you doing? Why are these players still so crap? If you're doing it over a year, if over 2 years, over 3 years, over 5 years, like you guys, you look even further up and you think, what the hell are these board of directors and owners doing? Because you guys are crap. It's simply just looking at the time scale. If Zinchenko makes an individual error in a match, I'm going to say, Zinchenko, you're crap. I'm not going to say, Arteta, you're crap. I might say, Arteta, you're stupid for playing him because he keeps doing this. But if he makes an individual error, I'm going to say, you're an idiot. You need to not do that again. If he does it over the course of a season, I'm going to say, Arteta, why the hell are you keep on picking this player? If he does it over 7 years, I'm going to say, why are these board of directors still choosing Arteta? It's simply the power is related to the amount of time, and the people that should get the blame is based off of the amount of time that this has been going on for. With you guys, I think, it's been long enough for people to say, you know what, this can't just be a player problem now. As much as these guys are making individual errors and I bloody hate them, there's something above here that's an issue. And I think every single time with you guys, it starts stretching into the time scale where you start looking back at the owners again and say, we can't be this crap for this long. There's got to be a problem at the very top. But at the same time, you can also look on the shorter time scale and say, Ten Hag, you could do a bit better than you're doing right now. And so instead of like picking sides like we all love to do and saying either, oh, that player's crap or that owner's crap or that manager's crap, it's a little bit of it's like you said, it's a little bit in the middle.
They're all crap.
Right? They're all a little bit crap. They're all making mistakes. The players made a mistake there. The managers made a mistake for picking him. The board of directors have made a mistake for keeping him the manager. It's a pretty simple equation, but we just love to go to an extreme to say, oh, it's the players' fault. Oh, it's the manager's fault. Oh, it's the chairman's fault. And that's why when I look at these last 3 games from Arsenal, I say, Arteta's got to hold the most smoke for this. This is 3 games of bad performances. The players have been not great, of course, but it's Arteta's responsibility over that period of time to get better results out of this team. If he does it for an entire season, I'm going to start looking at Edu and I'll start looking at Kroenke and say, you guys are not putting enough pressure on this guy to be better, right? Or you're not surrounding him with people that can tell him when he's wrong. Because we said it, Ant, I don't know what he's doing sometimes, man. I honestly don't get what's going on in Lego Ed's head. Like,
don't worry, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in Coned's head either. Like,
exactly.
Honestly, taking off Kobe Mainu yesterday, I get he's young. I get you've got to be careful, right? I think the big criticism previously of Arteta is he's working Saka to the bone, and that's not good for him, right? You see, he's I think that's part of the reason why he's been as lethargic or kind of looked as low in kind of high intensity runs and actions in the last couple of months. I do think that all plays a part. So I understand that bigger picture. But God's sake, why are you bringing on McTominay? That's not the only option, right? I'm not even mad taking off Kobe Mainu. I understand the logic. But you've got to have, I can't be telling you, and the fans can't be telling you, that that's a stinker. That we can all see that's terrible. And then you've got 2 goals conceded where Scott McTominay can do much, much better. But he's proven before he can't do those particular roles. So you've got to look at it all. You can't just say only the players are poor. You can't just say only, the management haven't given him the right players or they've given him too much power. Tactically, he's got to do better. You can't make those decisions or make those huge errors. They're costing us over and over and over again. So you can't just be blind to it. You have to look at everything. Sometimes it might be a case where, all right, someone not tracking back has caused us to lose a game. Then you can blame the players. Sometimes you can say, okay, that player is absolutely rubbish, or we don't have a big enough squad, and you can blame the ownership or the higher ups and say they haven't provided the best options for the coach. And then sometimes you can look at the goals that we conceded against Nottingham Forest and say that is tactical. We can't keep conceding the same goal over and over and over and over again and blame the players and blame them. That's a consistent pattern, bro. When I saw that compilation, I was like, come here. Everyone keeps saying we don't have a style of play. That's
Our
rubbish.
Style of play is to let in goals.
Our style of play is to attack and not to defend. That's what our style of play is. We're just poor at attacking. But in terms of the defensive side, we're doing what it seems like is being asked of. Our defensive midfielders not even being asked to shield his back 4 or pick up his attacking, opposition attacking midfielder. God's sake, John, that's got to be tactical. They can't be that brain dead to not do that. So you got to look at Ten Hag and say, come on, man, pull your finger out. These are glaring errors you're making. Glaring. These are not super intricate. It's not like they've done some, Pep Guardiola football tactico, goal, and we need to look at it and go, bloody hell. Yeah, this is glaring, man. When you see that happen 20 times and we're in December going into January, right? Come on, man. We've got 5 more months of the season to go. This is how many more times is that going to happen before we eradicate this? You've got to look at it. It's about using logic and applying it to this situation instead of just going, it's all the players, it's all the board, it's all the manager. You've got to look at it when it happens. This Nottingham Forest game, Ten Hag's got to hold it. That West Ham game, maybe the players have got to hold it because it didn't seem like a huge tactical problem. They didn't execute well. there's other games when, for example, you could even say the West Ham game was a bit of the board too, because we're playing Cambuala and, a bunch of youngsters when, we could have bought a defender or something like that. It's going to vary from week to week when you've got so many problems like we have, right? We've got so many problems. They're going to rear their ugly head in different ways at different times. But anyway, let's get on to the preview section, Johns. FA Cup, round 3. Very different games because United go to Wigan Athletic, who I believe are in League One.
Your one's easy, our one's hard.
Yeah, we'll say that now and then, watch when we get knocked out by Wigan. But yeah, we're going away to Wigan. You're at home to Liverpool. We'll do this real quick before we get into the special segment.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie. If we lose that, I'm going to lose my fucking shit because we can't lose away to Wigan, right? We can't. Like, we're at a point now. We're out the Champions League. We're out the Carabao Cup. If we lose to Wigan, we've just got the Prem. That might actually be a blessing in disguise, but we need to have a bit of a cup run. We've got a favourable draw. Wigan are not great. We should be beating them. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 to Man United, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was really squeaky and like a 1-0 or a 2-1. What do you think?
I think he'll win that. I think he'll be convincing because I don't think, even with styles and all that, I don't think your style is that bad given the crop of players that you've got to lose against Wigan Athletic. And maybe I'll look like an asshole after this when I'm wrong.
Jonty curse.
The Jonty curse is in full force. Remember, I did say that Fulham were going down this season, and look what they've just done to us, mate.
You said Mateus couldn't score a goal, and then
he's gone and banged like fucking 20 goals in. Yeah, great times. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Man United win.
All right, I can see that happening. All right, let's go to Arsenal-Liverpool then. Bloody hell, you've been absolutely shagged on this draw. I was going to say the only saving grace is they might rotate their team, but the last time they did, they slapped West Ham 5-1. So I think this is going to be a difficult game, and it might be a draw. So I'm going to actually go for a 2-2, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 3-2 either way. But I'm going to go for 2-2. What do you think, Johns?
I'm in so many different minds here because I'm thinking, we've got to bounce back from the terrible 3 games that we've just played, so we'll go and surprise everyone and win. Liverpool can be complacent, whatever. But at the same time, I've just got to look at the 3 fixtures and think what's changing between now and then, right? Is Tomiyasu going to be still around for this? I don't think he will be. I think he's probably going to have to go off to Japan for the Asia Cup soon, maybe. I'm not sure, but even then, I don't think that's that critical. So I'm going to say, I don't see that much changing. I think this vein of form that we're in, I don't see it getting better. I don't think we're playing very well. I think Liverpool are playing very well. I'm going to say that we're going to lose 2-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would fight back on that. I don't think Liverpool are playing fantastically, but yeah, I think
they're getting results though.
Yeah, I do think you guys are on a lower ebb. So I get that it's going to be a tricky one, but yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys won that, honestly.
Will they have Salah as well? Because obviously he's going to AFCON. Do you know when they're all leaving? Because if that's true, and we don't have Tomiyasu, they don't have Salah, maybe things look a little bit better. But
they might not even play Salah. But yeah, I, from what I've heard, but this only applies to Onana. It might not apply to the Egyptian team. But I think there's been some special dispensation for some players to allow them to play the FA Cup round of games this coming weekend. But I'm not sure if that's going to apply to Egypt. I know it is going to apply to Onana, so he's going to be able to play the Wigan game, but he's going to have to jet off after that. So I'm not sure with the Asian Cup. I think from what I heard, Son's last game was the one he just played against Bournemouth, and he's off to play at the Asia Cup. So obviously Korea, Japan might have different schedules, so I'm not sure. This would probably be a game where Tomiyasu would play. But to be honest, I don't think this will ride on Tomiyasu from your side. I think it's
I don't think it rides on him. It just makes it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Just I think it's more dependent. Zinchenko.
Yeah, it's more dependent on the Salah side, I think, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, let's hope we both get W's. You've obviously got a slightly trickier one, so let's hope. Either way, it's going to probably be for an interesting next pod next week. But yeah, let's hope that we get the W's and try and turn around our form. But let's get into the special segment then. So obviously New Year, cheesy, everyone goes their New Year's resolutions out. We're not going to do personal ones here, but we'll do it on a football sense, and we'll do football New Year's resolutions for both Man United and Arsenal. We'll try and limit them to 2 each, Johns, just because I know we're a bit strapped for time. And then we'll do one general New Year's resolution for English football in general. I don't think any of the listeners are going to need any guesses on that one. I think that one's bloody straightforward, to be honest, because we've been moaning about it every single week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but let's get into. I'll get into mine then first. I'll go first. Pretty straightforward. I think the first one is for this year. I would really like Man United to develop a sustainable style of play that suits the actual players that we want to use going forward. So I'm not talking about playing. If it's Ten Hag or if it's a new manager or the new board decide we want to play a certain style of football, I want us to actually really try to implement that with the players that we want to use going forward. So I don't want to hear if for example, it's fluid possession style football. I don't want to see Harry Maguire play. I don't want to see Scott McTominay play. I don't want to see, if it's even that deep, Bruno play. If we want to actually play players that want to keep hold of the ball, keep possession, be more methodical, and actually have a bit more control. I don't want to see any of the players that don't fit that style of play for Man United going forward, if that's the style of play that we want to play. And I honestly want, and I'm hoping, that the style of play is going to have a much better balance between defence and attack. I don't want, for example, us to do what I'm currently just accused of playing, which is all-out attacking football with no one with any defensive responsibility. This is 2024. No teams play that way, right? No teams play that way, and we're not going to get any success if we just decide we want to play all-out attacking football. We need to find a better blend of defense and attack. So I don't want us to be all-out attack. I don't want us to be all-out defense. Let's find a progressive style of play. As long as it's sustainable, I don't care what it looks like. As long as it's sustainable and it suits the players that we have at the club and that we want to keep at the club, I'm all for it. And the second New Year's resolution I want is for us to just actually get rid of all of the toxic and deadwood players that don't fit that style of play. I don't care if we sell them for 100 million or 100p. Like, I don't care. Just get rid of them, or if we're even paying them off and ripping up contracts. We need to get rid of those players, and we need to give the young players that fit that style of play a chance. Right? I've said on this pod before, I haven't seen much of Hannibal, but I'd like to see more of him. We haven't seen a lot of Ahmad. I'd like to see more of him. I haven't seen much of Kobe Mainoo. I'd like to see more of him. We have seen a bit of Garnacho, but I'd like to see more of him. All of those things apply if those are the players that fit the style of play. Kwambuala is another one, right? He only played 1 game and a half or whatever, but he looked decent. Let's give people a chance who actually fit that style of play, and let's just commit to it. Let's actually commit to it and not change from week to week, opponent to opponent. Have a manager who's famed for playing sustainable possession, hyper-controlling play, telling us he wants to play the best transitional football ever. Like, let's just actually have an identity within the club, and let's just all push in one direction. That's my one. It's kind of one big New Year's resolution, split into 2 actions, I guess. But yeah, that's my big ones for 2024. Please God, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir David Brailsford, Jean-Claude Blanc, whoever, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I don't give a fuck. Whoever's listening, who's in charge, please God, give that to me. I swear to God, that will make me a happy man. I don't even care if we, finish 8th and 5th and go down the Arsenal route where, it's not necessarily giving us the results that we want in the next 2 or 3 years. If I can see that, I'll hold it. Yeah, John's Arsenal, give me your ones.
All right, I'll be quick with it. I think my one's similar to yours, maybe one step ahead, which is develop another style of football. I want to, on top of this current kind of possession-based breaking down teams style of football that we've got right now, I would like to see us develop a quicker one-touch, two-touch, using width on the pitch type of football. I would like to see more improvement in our transitions. I want to see us play quickly out from the back, not have to kind of build everything up with 100 different passes. I want to see more of that. I want to see just a development of a style that we can use against low block teams and bully ball teams that we are currently losing to, right? That's number one. I think I've been saying that now for the last 3 months, since the beginning of the season, really. I don't I can't put my full faith in this one style of football to beat every team, because managers ain't stupid, right? They clock it pretty quickly. And a lot of them, given that this is the Premier League, have a bunch of players that can play bully ball and low block football. This is England after all, right? Not everything has changed with Pep coming over here.
This
Number
is
two,
England.
Exactly. This is England. Let's play a bit more Stoke type football if we can. Number two is kind of same kind of idea as you. So it's in line with developing that second style of football. I would like to see us go and buy a clinical kind of poacher or striker that is physical, good finisher, can put things away over and over again from the 5-yard box, whatever. I don't care. Get me somebody like that to complement the style of play that I just mentioned, right? We've got the possession style of football where we've got Gabby Jesus and we've got all these players that are really good with the ball at their feet. They can create space in behind. They can do all these other great things. That's great. But at the same time, get me a replacement for Eddie Nketiah who is more clinical, does more off the ball, is a nightmare for defenders to deal with, is good in the air. And ideally, my top choice would be Ivan Toney. My second kind of, or maybe third choice really, is going to be Solanke. I'm sorry, Solanke, I don't rate you that much yet. I need to see you do it on a slightly bigger stage. And to me, the difference between the top and the second choice is probably going to be between challenging for the title, which I think we're now quite far away from, to be perfectly honest with you, and coming third or fourth, which I think if we do nothing, I do think we're coming third or fourth now. So those are my two things. New style of football. Give me a big, lumbering, massive striker to just get in people's way. Give me a Haaland, an English Haaland, please.
Chris Wood incoming. Yep.
There we go. New Zealand, come on.
I'm not going to lie. That used to be a diss, but after his hat-trick against Newcastle, that's not a diss.
He turned into prime Bergkamp in that match.
Yeah, my God. He absolutely packed and potioned bloody Dan Burn. I don't think I've ever seen him get absolutely stomped out like that, like Chris Wood did. So big up Chris Wood and Nottingham Forest.
Him and Cole Palmer are now turning into the techiest players in the league. God save us all.
Cole Palmer is a baller, I've got to be honest. But yeah, Chris Wood is the one I didn't see coming. That's a resurrection that I did not see coming. But big up Chris Wood. We love the Kiwis. And yeah, the general football New Year's resolution then, Johns, we probably got the same one. But yeah. I want to hear yours first. What's it going to be?
Figure out how to use VAR properly. Just sort out this refereeing situation, right? Just tell me when you're going to use it and when you're not going to use it, and make that make sense, right? Don't just pick and choose because of some stupid arbitrary rule of, we don't want to get too involved in football, and then you slow down the match for 5 minutes every 2 minutes, right? Like, I don't want to see 20 minutes of extra time every time because you guys were checking if it come off someone's arse and then their hand. Figure out when you're going to use it, when it's best to use it, what fans agree with, and implement it properly, and get all of these crap refs that are quite clearly over the hill in terms of their refereeing career. Get me in all of the other refs. Get me all the grassroots refs in here. I don't care. These lot are crap.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I think I'm not gonna hammer home the VAR thing, but I totally agree with you. You know, we've got ways to implement it better. At the moment, we're not doing that. And I think we're kind of a bit of an embarrassment on the global stage when it comes to VAR. There's no reason other than our arrogance as to why we're choosing to implement it in this way. So you know what? I don't even hate Howard Webb. You know, I actually think that he is probably one of the best people that we can put in place to fix this. But he really needs to get on it quick. Right? He's doing other things quickly. I hope he follows this through and makes the right changes when the season ends and he's allowed to actually make some adjustments to the way we implement it. Because I tell you what, it's been all time stinky this season, right? He needs to fix it. It's not the technology's fault. It's the way we're implementing it. It's the people we're choosing to use it. Those are the stinky parts. Those are the parts that also, those are the things that we can control. So we can fix those. So Howard Webb, if you ever listen to this, you know what? I'm not going to hammer you anymore, right? You can go back. Don't go back and watch the other episodes because you might see something you don't like. But this part is, please God, fix the obvious things that we can do better. Hopefully you can also fix the other things that, that we don't know about, that are, technology-wise, that are coming in, that will make the game flow better. Because we do have one of the best leagues. Let's not ruin it because we just get arrogant and, believe our own hype and decide we know best and we're not going to, take on other things that are clearly working well on the global stage. The main thing I will say, and this is actually a compliment to PGMOL, is do more of what you've done in the last couple of weeks by employing new referees like Rebecca Welsh, like Sam Allison, right? Not just because of some DEI thing, although we big that up, right? We want to see more women, we want to see more, diverse communities being involved in football because we know football is a global game. Everyone loves football, but also I didn't hear any controversy around those two refs. I didn't hear one thing. Maybe I didn't watch bloody Sheffield United Luton or whatever crap game it was, that Sam Allison ref, right? But I also didn't hear any dramas, right? I didn't hear any dramas around Rebecca Welsh and Sam Allison. So that already tells me, you know what, they might be half decent and they're better than the crap that we actually have already. So if you have the ability to do this on a larger scale, stand down all the shitty refs we currently have, right? Don't do some bloody, blue power like the police do, for example, and take care of one of your own and all that rubbish. Get rid of the rubbish ones and get the good ones in. I don't care if someone's coming off, like you said, Sunday League football or, the Vanarama League or whatever, low-level league there is out there. If they've got the ability to be a top referee or they've got the attributes and you've seen it in them, fast track them, bring them in. I don't care. Don't listen to the Brexit EDL dons on Twitter who's saying, they're only in it, or, Joey Barton's, they're only in it because they're a woman, or they're only in it because they're black or Asian or whatever, or gay or whatever it is. If they're right and they're good, bring them in, fast track them. I want to see these better refs come. The game will get better. And honestly,
can't get much worse.
It can't get worse. I don't want to have a ref watch every week. I don't want to talk about refs anymore. I'm bloody sick to the back teeth of it. You are probably too, Johns, right? We're sick of it. I just want to talk about our teams, the football, and if you bring in more people like Rebecca Welsh, like Sam Allison, big up. Obviously we're a bit biased. Try and bring an Asian in. That would be great. But otherwise, just get someone good in. That's all that matters. Get good people in and referee the game the way it should be, coupled up with what John said around VAR. If you can do those two things, honestly, mate, you might be a little bit less busy because you won't have to do that stupid mic'd up show with Mike Lowen or whatever. But ultimately, the game will be better and we'll all be happier. We'll have other things to moan about. Don't worry. We'll moan out about our teams and our players and all these other things that are going on.
Else, yeah.
Managers and whatever. Let us moan about that. We don't need to be moaning about the refereeing, right? If there's a genuine mistake, I don't think we even will moan, right? We moan because it's absolutely dire, not because we want to.
Exactly. And I want to give one more shout out to a possible kind of second to that, which is, can we figure out schedules, please? I don't get what's going on with the Friday night matches and then matches at like 8:30 p.m. kickoffs and all this other stuff. I agree also that the players, I don't need to be watching. I love football, but I don't need to be watching it this often. Like, man, I've got things to do as well, right? Like, they need to figure out how many competitions are you expecting these people to play in, and how are you getting them to play basically every 3 days? Like, it's turning into bloody basketball. I feel like I'm watching the NBA. They've got back-to-backs and all this stuff. Can we figure this out? Because these players are going down quickly, and I'd prefer not to see all the players that I really like go down with injuries and their careers end because you guys run them into the ground because you can make an extra buck. Can we figure that out as well, please, as a second New Year's resolution?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's coming because I did see some news saying that, FIFA's preparing themselves for the players to start looking at lawsuits around how many games they're being asked to play. Fair enough. You know what, man? I don't agree with the Simon Jordans and these guys, these guys that believe, that as soon as you start getting paid the big bucks, you can basically tell them to do whatever you want. No, too much, man. It's too much. Otherwise, we're going to start getting into, the NFL styles. This is my American sports comparison, where you have like a 60-man squad or 60-person squad because you just have too many games of too high intensity. People are just dropping like flies. We don't want to see that. We want to see the best players play, and we want to see the best players play, as we've kind of got used to seeing them play every, twice a week maybe, or, once a week or whatever in the competitions that make sense. So, yeah, I agree with that. Let's hope we actually get to see some of these New Year's resolutions and it's not just going to be like, going to the gym where you see everyone turn up on January and then as soon as you hit February the 15th, no one's there anymore. It's just the real serious stuff involved. Let's hope this actually comes true. But yeah, anyway, thanks, Johns. Great pod. Feels like it's been forever that we've done one. So yeah, we've got a lot, it's probably been a long one for people. So, but yeah, apologies for this hour and a half kind of pod. But yeah, we've had a lot to cover. And let's hope, this is a better year for both Arsenal and United, and let's hope that there's some silverware in our futures. But yeah, thanks, Johnson. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Ant.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.